Light is on, folks, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending our meeting this wintry night, and I'll call the meeting to order. Would you like to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Allison, could we get a roll call, please?
Olson.
Here.
Sykes.
Yep.
Bessie Johnson. Here. Kellum.
Here.
Alex Johnson.
Here.
Coburn.
Here.
Canopa.
Here. Okay, first we have for business this evening is going to be public hearings. This is going to be over our transportation system development charge funded list modification, the building division fee changes, and the planning fee changes. So what we'll do is we're going to have a public hearing for all three of those items for that. So with that, I will open the public hearing at 7:17 p.m. And is there a staff report? Yes, Rob. Will you be doing staff report for all three or just one?
Just for the transportation, SDC.
Okay. And then, David, you doing okay, all right.
Thanks,
All three
Mayor.
of you come up. So,
All right.
Thank you.
So the public hearing tonight is to consider modifying the transportation SDC fee, specifically the project funded or the funded project list within that, within the SDCs. But before I go into the details of how we are proposing to modify that project list, let me just give a little bit of background on why we're asking to modify the list. If you recall, on October 21st, we had a City Council work session where we discussed improving Goldfish Farm Road, or making improvements to Goldfish Farm Road. That would be a project that the county would spearhead, and the city would participate in that project. And the city's responsibility would be to fund and obtain the needed right-of-way, and the county's responsibility would be to design, or to fund, design, and then to manage the construction of that project. So with that said, that's not really what I want to focus on tonight. I'm just kind of giving you background of why we are modifying the transportation fee. So the good news is we are able to modify the funded project list without increasing the transportation SDC fee. And that's really made possible for really one big specific reason. About 3 or 4 years ago, we obtained a grant for Gibson Hill Road to allow us to construct the sidewalk improvement project for Gibson Hill Road. That grant funding allowed us not to use the funds allocated for that project on the funded list. So that funding allocation is remaining unused for the Gibson Hill Road project. What we are proposing to do is take that funding that was allocated for Gibson Hill and roll part of that funding into the Goldfish Farm Road project, specifically for the right-of-way acquisition. So as shown in the memo, I'll just kind of state that quickly. We're asking to move $468,000 from the Gibson Hill Road project into the Goldfish Farm Road project. That would still leave about $255,000 in the Gibson Hill Road project to finish. There are a few remaining sidewalks in that project that were not completed. That would allow that project to be completed. And the good news is then of the $468,000, that would allow the right-of-way purchase for Goldfish Farm, and that's kind of a conservative estimate. If that is too much and the right-of-way does not end up costing or using all that $468,000, then the remaining portion of that money will be rolled into the project itself and help build a portion of the roadway. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions of Rob? Okay, all right.
What do you look at me for?
Jonathan, you next.
So don't we have to close this out before you do the next thing? Good evening, Jonathan Balkema, Building Official Manager with the city. Before you, starting on page 15 of your packet, we have a memo going for some fee changes that we want to look at doing. And I'll just kind of give a higher level overview of each one of the elements. And if you have questions, feel free to ask and I'll dive into a little more detail on them individually. So the first one that you'll see, bullet number 1, is the residential building permit base fee. This is the one that applies to 1 and 2 family dwelling units. Currently the base fee on that one is set at $60, which is our lowest base fee that we have. As part of the overall package that we're talking to you about, to make the number 2 work effectively, we want to increase that, or we're proposing to increase that base fee from the $60 that it currently is to align with the commercial one that's in the same area at $75, which is consistent with all of our other base fees that we have for mechanical, plumbing, and those sorts of electrical. So we're just making a modest adjustment into that. The last time that you looked at our fee structure was actually back in 2009 when we were coming out of the recession, and at that point we ended up doing a 20% increase in to try to make ourselves solvent. So this number hasn't been increased in about 11 years now. So we just need to re-look at that. In step 2, the main part of the package that we're bringing for you for consideration is actually a fee reduction. As I just mentioned, the last time you guys had looked at us, it was to give us a decent fee increase so that way we could become solvent. If you may recall, you actually had to loan some money out of the general fund to keep us afloat, and thank you for that. But we are now, thankfully, in pretty good recovery mode, so staying with the fiscal responsibility nature that we have under our state program, we're actually looking at slowing down any revenue because luckily our forecasts have been strong. So overall, we're looking at making some modest decreases in the residential and the commercial program. It's the way our fee structure is set up, it's relatively changes in each category. As you can see, the incremental change on the one side of the column. Overall, from a program standpoint, the structural aspect, it works out to about 3% reduction in the building permit fees. One of the other things that we're asking for in our proposal is actually creating a new re-roofing permit fee. Currently, our re-roofing permits are subject to the standard valuation. So in commercial, if, say, Home Depot or Lowe's, that size of a warehouse, decides to re-roof their entire project, it's based on the valuation, which can be $500,000, $1 million, and we may be out there only a couple times. So currently, staff are independently reducing it down to how many inspections we think we will be on there and charging appropriately. In this proposal, we're actually asking to codify an actual fee of $225, which we feel is appropriate to cover the amount of inspections we likely will have in those type of a project. It'd still be subject to the plan review fee. Bullet number 4, which is on page 17, would be removing the land use review fee. This was unfortunately adopted in our table, and it's not actually appropriate in our table, as it is a land use and a local fee, and our fee should only be incorporating the state program's fee table. So that will be something you guys will be discussing shortly after with Mr. Martineau for moving that over to his fee table. And then item number 5 is just some general, more administrative type edits, renaming a couple fees to align better with statutes and rules that have changed since last time you talked to us, and then for some better clarification for some of our customers, using some examples like I have the residential building permit, which intent is supposed to be for 1 and 2 family, but we also have multifamily, which some people get confused with the residential versus multifamily. So we just want to clarify some of those things. And then because of some rule changes, we are no longer allowed to look at hydrants, but we look at the fire lines. So we're just renaming things to make it appropriate. So we would recommend that you adopt our proposed fee schedule.
Okay, any questions of Jonathan? All right, thank you. And David, you're next.
Hello, David Martineau, Planning Manager. So as Jonathan pointed out, a fee that's currently charged in the building division is being removed from their table and rightfully coming into planning. So that means that with the transfer of that particular fee, the plan review fee that we would be collecting would be sent to the general fund. So that's where our department is funded from, and this would simply help reimburse that for planning services that we're already engaged in. That's all I have.
Questions? Okay, all right, thank you. With that, did anyone sign up? Allison?
Yeah.
So we were in the public hearing for these three items, which is A, B, and C. And there's only one person who signed up, and that is Mr. Robinson. State your name and furnish your address, please.
Absolutely. I'm John Robinson. I'm in Ward 3, 2500 Del Rio Court Southeast. Both the memos for the building fees and the planning fees, my comments will be directed to both those, the building and the planning fees. In the subject line, we talk about effective government as being the theme. And I would comment that the case staff always makes is that the fees don't cover the time or actual cost of the staff. So, logic follows that says, well, the fee needs to be increased, okay? But what I see missing is any explanation of what staff has done to reduce the cost of doing the work or providing the service. To me, this would be effective government, okay? First, looking at process improvement, reducing waste, doing things lower, doing things to lower the cost of providing the service in the first place. To me, raising fees should be a last resort. And it seems to me like when we come up against these things, raising fees is always the first thing we do. As a contractor, all these fees are passed through to the homeowner, okay? So while these fees don't affect my bottom line, they do impact people wanting to build or remodel. And I believe that higher building permit fees and planning fees, along with higher SDC fees, cause people to either cancel doing projects, remodels, home builds, ADUs, garages, you name it, or they force them to consider doing the project without getting a permit. If we want to encourage compliance, that needs to be done with lower fees. Higher fees do not encourage compliance. Now, as a contractor, I won't perform work without a valid permit. And I am at clients' houses, and they go, oh, we have to get a permit for that. And they don't want to get a permit. And so that takes me out of doing that work because I will not perform that work without a permit. But many people do. And many homeowners decide to go ahead and do that work without getting a permit. Now, it could be a bath fan, it could be a dryer vent, it could be a water heater replacement. All of those minor homeowner type things that you would think of that probably many of you are qualified to do require a building permit, okay? Higher fees affect the cost of housing, making it less affordable, period. As contractors and builders, we are constantly being hit with new fees. Just this week, I learned of a new fee on rental equipment. The state passed it. It's aptly named HERT, H-E-R-T, should be called H-U-R-T. It stands for Heavy Equipment Rental Tax, and it's 2% of the fee. So you go down and rent a trailer, you go down and rent a tiller, you go down and rent a mower from the rental company to mow your yard, there's going to be a 2% tax on that. You could go down there and rent a ladder, a hammer, doesn't matter. There's going to be a 2% tax on that. So, all of these fees and taxes affect the cost of housing. As I mentioned before, I don't pay them. They get passed through, but people pay them, and people make decisions on getting work done to their homes and building new homes and so forth based on all these cumulative fees, and they just keep adding up and adding up and adding up. I do work throughout the Mid-Valley. I do a lot of work in Corvallis. In the past, it seemed to me, again, this is my perception, that when Corvallis passes something, a fee increase or whatever, next thing I know, it's here in Albany. And there's people here in Albany that say, oh, well, Corvallis has adopted that. We need to get on board and adopt that, okay? The reason I bring that up is because I can tell you that a mechanical permit in Corvallis is $22.50. I know this because I've taken out many mechanical permits for bath fans and bath remodels that I do, and it's $22.50. And sometimes I scratch my head and I go, how can they come out and inspect this? Now, besides the $22.50, there's a state 12% surcharge. There's other stuff on there, but that's the base fee in Corvallis for a permit fee for a bath fan. It's called a minimum mechanical permit. It's $22.50. So contrast that to Albany's minimum mechanical permit fee of $72. Pretty big difference there. Okay, $22.50 versus $72. So anyway, I bring that up as a real life example. And in summary, I would just ask that, you know, we raise fees as a last resort, okay? Now, maybe I'm not aware of cost reduction programs that staff's worked on or that's currently being worked on or process improvement. Maybe I'm not aware of that, and that's fine. Educate me, educate the public. You know, maybe some public education on this topic is warranted. That would make us feel better if we knew that everything's being done to reduce the cost of service before we just go out and raise fees. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that wanted to speak during this public hearing over the items 3A, B, C? Yeah, Mike?
Mike Quinn, Quinn, excuse me, 4455 Sunset Ridge Drive, Northwest. You know, we've kind of been through this before, and I wanted to kind of throw some perceptions out there. I just watched John just talk, and everybody up here was totally attentive, glued to him. Back in the day, when we had a little financial guru by the name of Crispin and that, Jeff, he'd be sitting right over here where Alex is at, excuse me, and he would be literally just doing the numbers head down and everything else. We went through this where it was a big public hearing a couple years back on a planning fee that was supposed to be something, it was supposed to be a big deal, and we all came down here. It actually equated out to $17 in that per, and you guys axed that. Well, I look at this, and the current administration in the, the current administration in our building department, I think there's not a builder in town that would tell you, previous to what we have going on right now, we literally had a great culture in the building department. I think it was the best almost in the valley and stuff. Well, there's been people that have moved in here and things are changing. And when we start talking about Corvallis, there's a lot of stuff that's in here right now that's coming from Corvallis. One of the things is the re-roofing thing. It started over there in Corvallis on re-roofing on commercial and big multifamily, you know, no fourplexes, duplexes, stuff like that. Then it moved into residential. The thing about it is that nobody gets up there and is going to actually check that stuff. They don't even let, in fact, I think if you look, you'll find out that most of your inspectors won't even crawl up a ladder in that, let alone check insulation maybe in an attic or something like that. So I'm just kind of want to be aware of those type of things. I think it's for the good of the order that they're bringing this up, but it's because it's coming from Corvallis and stuff. The other thing in Corvallis that happened a couple of years ago is that when you sit here, there's a little bit of the good feeling that we're having reductions. I actually have been talking to some of my builder friends lately here that we should have a major reduction in building fees here. And for one reason, that it was very subliminally told to you guys, well, you sent a lifeline in that to, the building department a couple of years back. Well, if you really knew, and there's a couple new people here, but there's a couple people that know it specifically, it was done because you had a building director in that literally spent money like it was just going out the roof and that like crazy, and got us down into about $125,000 minus from $790,000 in less than a year. Floyd Collins was I was adding on to Floyd's house and ex-councilman. We talked about it almost daily and said, it's going down. A group of us used to keep track of the the amount of money that was being generated for what we call the rainy day fund. And that's the surplus money that we have. And I think, I could be wrong, but it's right around $1.5 million. I know that when Stutzman left and that, Gary Stutzman, it was like 1.650. So the thing about it is, the money's there, and we did a thing across the state and found out when Blaine Brassfield was our building director, and that's where we really started to get a good vibe here in Albany and stuff. He felt that, a good rainy day fund for a town our size with 5 inspectors was right around $750,000 to $800,000. So he would come to us and ask the building association, well, what about if we just maybe bumped it up 3% over this next year, see how we land and everything else? Not this 25%, this, that, and everything else. I mean, before, the mayor pushed for a 50% increase on commercial because Walmart was coming to town and stuff. And so, it didn't hurt them because they'll just write a check out. You could have raised it 300% and they would have just wrote a check out. But it has hurt other commercial people wanting to come into Albany and stuff. The thing with these little tiny reductions, added up, if Jeff was sitting over here, he would tell you this, it adds up to pennies compared to raising, the $60 to $75 fee, $15 doesn't probably mean a lot, but I'll guarantee it's probably equates out to these little reductions in that down below on the 3 reductions. So why even do it in the first place? Is it just for the program of the month where people dream this stuff up? And then we have to come down here and that and talk to you guys about it? I kind of yearn for the days when we used to come down here and talk about cat laws and dog laws and tree laws and stuff for a whole year or whatever. So I just really, if you guys really got into the math on this, you might see that it's not really warranted. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anyone else that wanted to speak on these items? Okay, with that, then I'll close the public hearing at 7:37 PM. And does council, does staff have any comments they want to make over any of the testimony? Okay, and council, do you have any questions for staff?
I have one.
Okay,
If you take the minuses that went away and the pluses that added in, what's the ultimate outcome?
Approximately 3% reduction.
3% overall for
Overall over the structural program.
all 3 programs?
For the structural program over residential and
Okay.
commercial, it equates to approximately 3% of the
And-
various levels.
And what is the inflation rate? 2.5? So we're within 0.5% of inflation. Okay. Thank you.
Well, the other thing is I did add the numbers up that Mr. Quinn was talking about. And it looks like a $15 increase in the single family, but the decreases are in excess of $25.
yeah. Okay, any other questions? If not, first of all, you have a resolution that's on page 5. This is for the transportation system development charge. What would you like to do with that item?
I'll make a motion, we approve the resolution.
Second? All right, any discussion on this motion?
Just one item.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Robinson did point out that we don't seem to point out the times when we're saving money, and I recognize that that is not done all the time. There have been times that we saved money for the builder of a house, so it would not be passed on. And that was done by using electronic means instead of paper, so that we didn't have to hire as many people or hire back as many people from the 2008 timeframe when they laid people off, that there was more and more work done. I'm not saying that I would be happy if I was paying, don't get me wrong. But in fact, it has happened in the past to show that there are in fact reductions in expense. So
I don't know that we lowered prices, but what we didn't do is we didn't raise them over a period of time. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, the motion's been made in a second, and this is on the STC portion for transportation. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. Next, council, you have building division fee changes. This is a resolution that's on page 18.
Make the motion for adoption of the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on building division fees?
Yes.
Okay, Mike?
Why is there a fee for re-roofing a building? I'd like to know that. That one really bugs me.
So for commercial, it's not for residential, it's strictly for commercial. So
I understand.
under the commercial program, it's not exempt from needing building permits. We enforce a statewide program, so we are obligated to get permits on any project the state doesn't deem as being exempt from the building code and the permit requirements. So we're obligated to issue a permit and do inspections on those certain things. So the idea of needing a permit for re-roofing is a state requirement. The idea of having a separate fee line specifically for that is to reduce potentially the cost on some. There, depending on if it's an extremely low value, it may have a couple that may are a slight increase because of just the way the numbers work out. But for the most commercial projects, the number we picked was enough to cover the inspections that we anticipate on any given project, and then to stay below what they would have been if they paid the valuation, which is what they would have been subjected to. So recognizing Mr. Quinn's comments and the concern of, even from some of our own standpoint of the need for the permit, we're proposing to reduce that fee down so it's more reflective of the amount of work that staff actually puts in on those types of permits. Using some of those companies that I referenced, they did just actually go through their re-roofing permit, and originally it was going to be thousands of dollars for their permit, and we took it down to a similar fee to what we're proposing.
Okay, one last one. Why do you need a permit to restripe a parking lot? Restripe means put the lines back where they were before, and you're requiring a permit to restripe a parking lot?
So the permit requirement for restriping the parking lot, again, same context, the state does have an interpretation out there that basically if you're just putting it in the exact same spot and you're not reseal coating it, then you wouldn't actually have to have a permit. You're just refreshing the paint at that point. But if you're seal coating it and then repainting the stripe on there, and what it is to make sure that the accessible spot is in compliance with the current ADAG requirements and Department of Transportation requirements. So, for example, in that situation in August of 2018, the standard changed. So all parking lots, as they get restriped, need to meet the new compliance.
Thanks.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, there's a motion on the table for the building division fee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. And next is planning fee changes, and this is a resolution that's on page 26.
Move for the adoption of the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, just a clarification from staff. This is an existing permit. It's been moved over to planning, or an existing fee that's been moved over to planning. Is that right? That's correct.
No, there's no change in price or anything, it's just, you just moved it from, so it's an administrative move?
There is, my understanding, there's a fee change.
So increase or a decrease?
It increased in this one.
How much is the increase?
The memo indicates it's 50,000 for the year, as opposed to about the 10,000 that we've been receiving. So that would be money that goes back into the general fund.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah.
That's $40,000 increase.
$40,000 increase?
So I can elaborate a
Yeah.
little bit. So it's kind of two pieces. Originally, the
when we looked at planning review fees, when we were talking about residential, they lived in the building permit program, which was inappropriate, as Jonathan had mentioned. We went from, we charged $35, basically a minimum half hour, which ends up being $35. That really shouldn't have been in the building fee, so it's getting pulled out into planning as part of the efficiencies. And you guys actually had a conversation back in August, and we talked about planning fees, and part of that discussion was included these basically the building plan review portion of that as we looked at this true cost recovery model. So as we move it over into planning, when we look at residential plan review fees, formerly were $35. Now it's 15% of the building permit fee, or the building plan review fee, which I could check with Jonathan, but I think they're going to be probably fairly close in there. The bigger portion of that number that you see is actually in the commercial side, where we weren't necessarily capturing or all of that money or recovering our cost with the 15% now on the building permit plan review fee. It'll come much closer to a cost recovery. And I think in the discussion that was had in August was estimating, I think, I could quote some numbers, but it was around the $60,000 range that we estimated was the true cost of staff time without any of the indirects to do those plan reviews on building permits.
You know, it's those thousands of dollars over all the fees, not just the one fee.
Correct.
Sounds a little different that way.
Okay, because I'm like, when you said that, I'm like, wait a minute.
Excuse me, I got a $200,000 house, I'm going to get $60,000 to do, yeah,
So
that's
it's
going to be
over the
good.
entire thing.
Yeah, okay.
You should have said that, thank you.
A little elucidation is a good thing.
Yeah.
And remember, council, this came from during our budget season, and that was looking at, since we had so many reductions, looking at what would be a full cost recovery for planning, and that amounted to about $400,000 a year. So property taxes subsidized planning, and that's where, do we increase those fees? Does a community want to be subsidizing new development? Yet when we're being faced with, we were having to shut down Maple Lawn, and we're having to look at our library and all that. So this was a piece of it. So trying to get some costs back up. So to be able to keep our programs whole. Okay, any more questions on planning fee changes?
Yeah, I have another one.
Yep.
Can that planning fee review be outsourced? Is there people outsourced? Can it be outsourced?
As far as outsourcing the planning review fee, the planning...
No, the planning review totally.
Well, the planning review would be, it's done by our planning staff currently because they're familiar with our particular development code, which is what they're reviewing against. If it went to an outside, like say a third-party consultant, they'd have to basically know our code as well as our staff does. We haven't evaluated as far as could it be done cheaper by a third party.
Not cheaper, less expensive.
Or less expensive, sorry.
Potato.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. All right, thank you. Next is business from the public. Is there anyone this evening that would like to bring an item forward? Yes, Ray?
Good evening, my name is Ray Hiltz, 2748 Foxglove Loop, Southeast. You may or may not know, but the final petitions for appeal for the Lynn County property tax for the board to appeal has come in. And Mr. Thorderson, you had several meetings ago mentioned about Measure 5 and a Measure 50. When I first started on the board, there was over 800 petitions, and that took quite a while. At that time, property taxes were going up 16, 18% for quite a few years. And that's why the public voted to put the 3% limitation. Well, it's not over 800, but it's actually only 19 petitions that we will be processing that individuals or businesses do not feel that their assessed value is proper. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And so, anyway, it's only going to take us about a day and a half instead of weeks.
Oh, wow. That's good news. Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Ray. Okay, anyone else from business from the public? Peggy, yes.
Good evening. Peggy Burris, Executive Director of the Albany Historic Carousel and Museum, 2989 Northwest Valley View Drive, Albany. I'm here just to share some really great news. We applied for a grant through the Willamette Valley Visitors Association in early December and found out today that we're receiving the full grant of $30,000 to build a museum, an actual museum space of 800 square feet in our lower level, also known as the basement. It sounds better to call it the lower level. We'll hopefully be applying for permits next week, and we're just very, very excited. So I'll be inviting all of you to the ribbon cutting of our new museum space. We have a lot of items that have been donated to us and lent to us that are historic, and they need to be properly displayed in a museum space. So thank you, Mayor Canopa, for your support when we asked for a letter of support. So just wanted to share the great news.
Great news, really good news. Thank you, Peggy. How did the new ring toss game, how many people came?
So if you're not familiar, we introduced Friday evening at First Friday, our brass ring game. Historically, carousels have brass ring games, and we hadn't had one yet. And so we introduced that Friday night. We had over 225 people attend our first Friday.
That's wonderful.
It's a learning process for all of our volunteers. It's very fun. I encourage you all to come over for a ride to play it. You play on the outside animals that are not leapers. And the goal is to get the brass ring, a lot of plastic. You'll get a lot of plastic rings possibly before you get that brass ring. And then we will give you a free ride token for another ride on the carousel.
Oh, that is excellent.
It's very fun,
Good
so I
turnout.
encourage y'all to come over.
Yep, great, thank you, Peggy. Anyone else from business from the public? Yeah, Mike?
Actually, this is what I came down for until I read that paper, and then I had to make a comment earlier. I want to try to revisit the situation with affordable housing in Albany. We've been kind of having all these little get-togethers and, you know, the confetti being thrown up in the air and balloons popping and everything else. But we still aren't, you know, doing what we should do as a city for people that are less fortunate, everybody that's up here on this, you know, top table there. And what I mean by that is that we're getting this federal money because we're considered a metropolitan area. I don't think it's being used right. I think the only people that gain from it are some of the city staff that actually get to have maybe 2 meetings a year and have, you know, good old talks and stuff like that about how we bring some type of affordable housing into the picture. Recently, I got a graph from one of our planners. It says that we are 620, the housing authority in our area says we need 620 single-bedroom type apartments, be it either housing and or duplexes, fourplexes, apartments, whatever. And I think there's a need of like 420 two-bedroom. Well, we get up in the 3-bedroom, we build that stuff all day long because, like some people think, you know, it's the profitable way to go. The thing about it is, I did a little study on this, you know, single-bedroom type thing and stuff, and just the SDCs alone kill that program. But I think more of my complaint is based on, we keep having meetings. There's been a really, I've been told by 4 of our councilmen that we can look at getting a affordable housing task force. There are some people in that don't want that up here, but we need to have it, and we need to have it soon. I just came back from a U.S. Bank synopsis up in Portland that talked about Oregon's especially, and between the three western states, we're almost 10 years behind in building. We literally, during the recession where a lot of people got cut off on financing for their housing projects and everything else, they literally haven't for 10 to 11 years tried to come back and talk to any bank about doing it. We're 10 years behind. Now, it's great for you folks up there because it creates, like it did for, Corvallis a couple of years back, about 10, 12 years back, supply and demand. What happens with supply and demand? The prices go up. But what's good for a municipality is, especially when you lose HP like they did over there, it takes the assessments up. So if you curb growth, which it's coming, you can't populate control like some people are talking here and stuff, that when the assessments go up, you get more taxable income. Well, that's what's happening in Albany right now. So you're literally leaving the people that need it the most, and we worry about, homelessness and stuff like that. There's people that they can't afford the rents around. I'm a landlord and stuff like that. The only time I raise my rents, and that is when somebody in that passes a levy or something like that, and I have to. And I've said this before to you, and that you have to really start looking at, let's get together, let's get this task force going. Don't have to call it a commission because since I'm not a resident of Albany, as I've been told, you can have task force and you can have multitude of outside people. Just like what you did with your fire and police station, you had 3 people in there that 2 of them were my neighbors and they were on that commission and stuff. So I'm just asking, let's kind of get with it now. I'm asking for you guys to get something passed and, I'm not so sure you have to pass. I think you can just appoint. And let's get with it instead of having these meetings because I've asked, Ann Catlin, she's had a couple of these meetings. It's mandated by state, that statute, that you have to have 2 of these meetings a year because apparently we're getting this money. So, but I asked, well, what about the minutes from all these other meetings? What have you come to conclusion on? There's no conclusions. It's just for the good of the order to have, the talk and staff get, take off, part of that money and stuff. So, and it's just like, the raising the planning fees, what you just did. The thing about it is if we had no building in Albany whatsoever, and we didn't for quite a while, we still had the same amount of staff in planning, and they still get paid, and I get the fact that you want to try to offset some of that, but what are we really offsetting and stuff, especially when you're talking, pennies and nickels? I'm asking you in that to get this task force going for affordable housing. There's some of us out here that kind of have a heart for people and that. It's kind of, I actually have more joy seeing somebody move into a really small house and that, and, just see the smile on their face versus me building a $500,000 house for them and stuff. It's pretty enjoyable to see people that are less fortunate get something that to live in that, they can be proud of. So please, let's get some action going here. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else from business from the public? Okay. Seeing anyone? Thank you, folks. Next item, council. This is on page 21, and we have a second reading of ordinance. 29, excuse me.
Yep. An ordinance amending AMC 3.28.060 to increase the franchise fee for Albany Lebanon Sanitation, Inc., DBA Republic Services, from 6 to 7%.
Council, what would you like to do with this ordinance? You got questions on it?
Move for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. All right, thank you. Thank you, Julie, too, for your assistance, thanks. Okay, next is the adoption of the consent calendar. You do have quite a few items here. If there isn't any items that need to be pulled off for discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to pull C.
Number C, okay. And anything else? Or
I'll move for adoption of the consent calendar with the exception of item number C.
Second.
Item letter C.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, Mike, yours starts on page 35.
I'd like to change some nominations of mine from Larry Preston and replace him with Bill Riles.
What's that?
change from Larry Preston to Bill Riles.
Okay.
On landmarks.
On landmarks.
On landmarks, right?
On landmarks.
On landmarks, okay.
On landmarks.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's it.
Okay, so with that, would you like to make a motion for that, the rest of that item C?
I'll make a motion for adoption of letter C on the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried,
That's as amended.
as amended.
As
Right,
amended.
yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right, that's it for our business. And first item for, under business from the council will be receiving the veto of ordinance number 5935. And council, that was read to you by our, which is required out of our city charter from Monday that was read. So, did you want to consider any changes? Going to, I have offered to go to 800 square feet. Is there any sentiment to going towards 800 square feet?
I'm
Or,
disappointed in that, I'll have to say.
I am too, but it takes a lot to want to go to 800, but state is going 8 to 900 is their recommendation, so.
Heck with the state.
I know. So,
Well, I have a problem with that. I'd like to keep it at the 900 because it allows a second bedroom for somebody that is aging and needs a place for mom and dad to stay. You got to remember that can't be done unless the setbacks and everything else are met. So I doubt if we're going to have a huge influx of people building ADUs overnight. You yourself are for the homeless and everything else, but we can't give people an extra bedroom if they need it. It's kind of disingenuous to me. And it was talked in your veto, you talked about that it wasn't in a public hearing, but I beg to differ. It went through the planning commission, and 8 people of the planning commission all agreed with the 900 square feet. So there was opportunity there, and it's always been 900 square feet for the last year and a half or 2 years on every time that you vetoed it. It's been at 900 square feet. So I don't know where there hasn't been a place for it to be discussed. It's been discussed until the cows came home. And I believe it needs to be left at 900 square feet. That's what the planning commission approved on an 8-0 vote. That's
8 to 1.
8 to 1. Stand corrected. That's been what's been going on for the last year and a half, almost 2 years. Again, if the setbacks can't be met, it can't be done. So I'd like to leave it at 900 square feet and move on down the road. And Dick, no, I don't agree with you.
What do you mean by leaving it at 900 feet?
That's what was voted on, and that's what she vetoed. Okay?
It's been 750 square feet for years, as long as we've had a ADU ordinance.
We voted on 900 square feet.
We voted on 900 square feet, Dick,
multiple times.
multiple times.
but you voted on the 900, what was the veto from last year was because of the off-street parking and
It was
the
a
owner
900 square feet.
occupied. And we still had it down in our ordinance as a 750. Some of the council wanted it to go to 900.
Most of the
Remember-
council, I think 4 of us wanted it to go to 900.
That's for.
And that's what we said we wanted it to be at.
Right.
I mean, whether or not
But you always
some
wonder-
staff got in it, it was in a public meeting at least 4 times.
Yes.
But you accused me of not compromising.
Well,
Over
you
and
didn't
over.
compromise, and then you did compromise one time. We were willing to compromise before. I guess the other thing I would point out is, in order to get 900 square feet, your house has to be 1,800 square feet. It can't be, you can't have a 1,200 square foot house and have a 900, it has to be 1,800 square feet, minimum.
Right.
So.
And
if you're-
still meet the setbacks.
Oh, yeah, and still meet the setbacks and all the rest of it. Any house within the last 10 years has no room
Exactly.
in their backyard to put an ADU.
There's a lot of houses in this town that are older than 10 years old, I'll tell you
Sure
that.
there are.
So
But
if you,
there are a whole bunch
And
of
they
them
have a
that
lot
have
bigger
lots
lots.
of space, that 900 square feet would not be a problem. I don't see a problem having 900 square feet. Frankly, if the veto is sustained, I know there's a gigantic chance that we will be taken to LUBA.
Fine.
And when we are taken to
Let's
LUBA,
do it.
we will have to authorize our legal counsel to go defend us. And there are at least 4 people on this dais that will not authorize that, so it will not be defended. We
So-
will therefore lose.
so City of Eugene, they were challenged at Luba, and Eugene prevailed. So they can
Eugene
try going to
prevailed, and
Luba.
if we do not defend it, they won't prevail.
But it's, if somebody takes it to Luba, it does cost money to take it to Luba, and odds are they're not going to make it on that. So, because basically, we're still complying with state law of
Well, then we don't need to do anything,
the
do we?
off-street parking and the owner occupied.
Yeah.
So the only thing, the difference is from whether you're going to allow an extra bedroom or not, which means more cars per bedroom, which means more impact. on
So Mike,
Essentially
so
gridlock
Mike,
coming out of North Albany
a
right
gridlock,
now.
Lord have mercy.
And you had a bunch of houses in the backyards of houses in North Albany. You're gonna have a problem where you just plain won't be able to get out of that darn place.
Can't now.
Huh?
You can't now. So
And
what's-
and you wanna make the problem worse?
Exactly, do you want to make it worse?
Yeah, well,
Dick.
Yeah.
You do wanna make the problem worse, apparently.
yeah, what, Marilyn, you said we have a gigantic rush hour, what, 11 minutes is what you quoted? I don't remember, seems like it was 11 minutes?
It's about that.
Yeah,
Wow.
it could go to 12, oh my God!
Stand by.
It took me half an hour to get from my house to Weimar.
Yeah, but you're 82 years old.
No,
And you're
that's
walking.
No, that's driving my car.
Excuse me, that would be 3 to the 4th power plus 1.
No, 2.
Okay, let's
Your
calm it
Honor,
down,
I'm 83
folks.
now.
I think
Well, no.
Counselor Johnson had something to say.
If
and
you're worried about it,
he's
I know
trying to
you're
get
Yeah.
attention.
Pardon me?
Alex is trying to
I
get.
I struggle with this lack of caring for the seniors in my community. The reason I say that is because I spend time in assisted living, independent living communities, and is astronomical. So if a senior can afford to build a 900 square foot, a second bedroom for a caregiver, and rent out their property and build an income, to be able to live there in their own place by aging in place, why would we want to stand in the way of that? And to hear you guys say it, it's going to become this traffic jam. Well, a lot of people that have the ability to buy their own, build their own ADU, would rather do that than live in an assisted living or independent living community, charging between $1,500 and $7,000 a month. And for a city council to say, well, let's disregard those people because we want 750 square feet. Caregivers sometimes have to spend the night. A granddaughter or a grandson sometimes have to spend the night to take care of grandma and grandpa. And for us to be stuck on the 750 square feet when we know 900 square feet at least gets you a second bedroom for a caregiver or a family caregiver to spend the night where grandma and grandpa age in place. It is asinine to me to hear these arguments about traffic and whatever. That's somebody's grandparents, and you guys are saying no. That's ridiculous to me. I went this year, in 2019, I went to 19 funerals of people that lived in those communities by themselves in a small room that could have been living on their property with their family. I don't want to hear it. Not from you or anybody else against this. It makes no sense for a city to say, go warehouse your seniors and not let them age in place.
Yeah.
Makes no damn sense.
Good job.
I'll bite my tongue over that. I disagree with the comment, but I do want to state, there is many communities. I mean, it's been, some people think that we are basically going too small of 750. There's many communities that are smaller. Even Eugene is 10% of the lot size. So if you think about a 5,000 square foot lot would only be allowed for 500 square foot ADU. So there's many community, and as I've stated before, even Millersburg is 25% of the square footage of the existing dwellings. So I guess you want to have ADUs bigger in our community than many other communities that
Yes.
allow it. So-
Yes, yes.
Okay?
We want to
Yes,
have
we
the
do.
opportunity.
Not everybody can have one.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a 1,200 square foot house, you've got a 600 maximum size ADU.
I live on a 3rd acre, and the way my house is set, I couldn't have one anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that aren't going to be able to have it. It's just, you're not going to have this big run of buildings.
How many ADU permits we got in the process right now?
Yeah.
So we.
Looks like I've got 2. Does that sound about right? About 2.
About 2. I've been
We've got people
so-
waiting in line right out here, just waiting.
But
for
you know
us to
what, though?
approve
That's
land.
good. They should be here. My point is, there's not going to be a big rush of ADUs.
They're sitting right out here.
Well, let's see how.
They're the builders.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And I don't see anybody
You know
here
what?
worried
And
about
every one of those
the
builders
poor
built.
people that don't have a place to live that want this damn
If
thing.
every one of those
Yeah.
builders build a house, an ADU on somebody's property so they can age in place, I'll applaud them. I'll buy them the beer after the party's over. That's ridiculous for you to sit there and say, no, because your situation is different than other people.
You're saying there's not going to be hardly any.
There's not going to be a rush. They have to meet the setbacks. They have to meet all the other things that go
Then why
with
is the
that.
big deal to have to go to 900 then?
Because a
You don't
caregiver
think there's
will
gonna
need to
be a
spend the
rush?
night.
The opportunity, the
grant-
opportunity to have it.
But
And-
a 900 could hold a 3-bedroom, could be a 3-bedroom, 900 square feet.
Okay.
It can fit a 3-bedroom.
Okay.
If you wanted smaller bedrooms, but.
Or a big.
How do you could make it 5 bedrooms?
How big are the bedrooms going to be in 900 square feet?
They only, technically, I think a bedroom only has to be 70 square feet by state law. So you can fit it.
I think you could have 2 bedrooms and a 750 square foot.
Most of the south central area of
If you wanted
South
2
Albany
bedrooms.
was allotted 2- and 3-bedroom houses that were 900 square foot houses, 1,800 square foot houses. You look at that whole section of town.
My God, what happened to the parking in those places?
So,
Oh, I know, that's
those extra
terrible.
bedrooms.
so, yeah.
At
Well,
this
it's-
point, I'd say I would move that we try to override the mayor's veto.
I second that.
Good move.
Okay, all right. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, and could we
back
get a
where we
roll call,
started.
please?
So whoever that person was that was going to take us to Luba, well, good luck.
Have at it.
Have it.
Have at it.
We welcome them then.
Can we do a roll call?
Good luck.
And
Yes, please.
I think you'll publicize this thing statewide, and it'll be a wonderful thing.
Dick, we're
Olson?
going to do roll call.
Olson?
The question is to override the veto, I vote no.
Sykes?
Yes.
Johnson? Bessie Johnson?
Yes.
Kellum?
Yes.
Alex
Yes.
Johnson? Coburn?
No.
Okay, all right. Motion passed. Okay, with that, next
pass.
is business, we're on business from the council. Bessie, anything?
You said the motion passed? Cool.
Yep, to override, the veto is 4-2.
So we're back to square
Thank
one
you.
we were 2
Thank you
years
very
ago.
much if you say it passed.
It has to be
It
5.
passed, but it
There
hasn't been
need to be
signed.
5
No, it has to be
votes.
5 votes.
Has to be 5
Pass.
The override did not take.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I was.
Jeez. But thank you very much if you're going to say yes.
Well, she's as
No,
confused
that's
as
right.
she is
It
about
doesn't
ADUs.
override it, but you're still for the 900 square feet.
Yep.
Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, veto still stays in place then. Okay, Bessie, anything?
Oh, I don't think I should tonight, thank you.
Okay, Bill? Dick?
Yeah, I helped with the Monteith House. They, over the Christmas time, they had carriage rides, and we had full carriages every time, and the people who came back said they really enjoyed it. And I'm happy to say that the city's Monteith House is really pretty much, or more than pretty much, really a success. So I enjoyed doing it, and I think the writers enjoyed it too.
Excellent, good job, yep, thank you. Rebecca likes hearing that, too. Yep. Okay, Rich?
Yeah. 13,052 days ago. That's 35 years and 7 months and some days. 313,348 hours. I went into business. It was almost by accident. I was between building boats and working on one of the welding machines, and the guy walks in and says, "Hey, can you do that for mine?" Well, that's when the business started. 6 days ago, I sold it. So now I'm in a position where I finally found somebody who is also a family business, who has the same kind of an attitude that you walk in and you get service and you get somebody to help fix your problem, and we worry about getting the problem fixed first before we worry about how much money it costs. And we keep the business because we give service. Because over 35 years, you don't have customers, you have friends pretty soon. Some of the same people the very first week that I worked on their stuff, I still have them as business associates. So it's kind of a bittersweet thing. There's the part of it that they're doing things different than I did, and I'm, oh, but you've got my baby. You worry about that kind of stuff. And then there's the other part, the Martin Luther King part, where it comes at the end of the day, it's free at last, free at last. Praise God Almighty, I'm free at last. Well, so I'm still going to be around. I'm going to be doing technical assistance for them, but it's kind of the end of an era for me. I kept going, it's 313,000 hours, and you just start feeling old pretty soon with that many things going on. So anyway, that's my thought for the day.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's cool.
All right, Alex?
Just busy.
Okay, all
Really
right.
busy.
Mike?
Not a thing.
Okay, all right. I didn't have anything until Marilyn had came across an article, which I thought was coincidental, and this was, it said the mayor sees no bag ban in Albany soon. And it was a question that was brought to me, if we would be following suit from like Portland of the plastic ban. And I said, no, there was many pros and cons to this subject. We have plenty on our plate right now that I doubt we'll be tackling this issue in the near future. This was back in 2011, so almost 9 years ago. And that's when Portland had adopted that bag ban. So I cannot believe it's been 9 years that, this topic has been out there. But I did have a person called and left a message today blaming Albany. He went to the store and had to pay for grocery bags. And he was blaming me, blaming the city for this, thinking that we passed an ordinance. So I did leave him a message back. No, if you have any complaints, that you contact your state legislatures then, and they're the ones that pass this. But we are totally clear on this one. So, amazing the things we get accused of. So, okay, that's it. I had Peter. Did you have anything?
Just wanted to note, remind you that the next regular council meeting will have a chance to recognize Chief Latanzio and our library director, Ed Gallagher, on their last meeting here before they both retire at the end of this month.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very disappointing.
When will we meet the new police chief, the library director?
27.
27. I thought it was 22nd, our next meeting.
Okay, staff have anything else? Yeah. Okay, all right. Our next meeting then is going to be Wednesday, January 22nd, council meeting, and we do have Kara
Era.
next week. But we have Era tonight, but we have Kara tonight.
You do have a meeting
We have a
Monday.
meeting
the
Monday.
Joint meeting with the planning
Oh, we have a
commission.
joint planning meeting, but our city council meeting would be January 22nd.
Can you wait?
And we have a Kara coming up. Okay, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you